Have you ever felt drained by someone's negative energy, as if their words and actions cast a shadow over your day? Toxic people, with their critical remarks and pessimism, can turn even the brightest moments gray. But what if I told you there's a way to find peace amidst this turmoil? Today, we uncover the ancient wisdom of the Buddha and path to inner strength and serenity. This story offers not just understanding, but practical solutions to shield yourself from negativity and cultivate a space of peace. Join us as we navigate the challenges of dealing with toxic individuals, finding solace and empowerment in Buddha's timeless teachings. Adov, a soft-spoken and kind-hearted person, found himself in a tough spot with his friend, Karan. Karan wasn't the easiest person to be around. He always had something negative to say, and it was hard for Adov not to take it personally. Every time they met, Karan would complain, criticize, and hardly ever had anything nice to say. Adov tried his best to be a good friend, but Karan's toxic behavior was starting to wear him down. It wasn't just the negative talk. Karan seemed to enjoy making Adov feel small. He often laughed at Adov's ideas and dismissed his feelings. Adov felt like he was stuck in a never-ending cycle of trying to please Karan, only to be put down again and again. Adov started to notice how this friendship was affecting him. He was often sad and felt a heaviness in his heart. His other friends and family started to notice too. They would ask, "Why do you spend time with Karan if he makes you feel so bad?" Adov didn't have a good answer. He just felt like he should be there for Karan, even though Karan wasn't there for him in the same way. One day, after a particularly rough meeting with Karan, Adov decided he had enough. He needed help and didn't know where to turn. That's when he remembered an old sage who lived at the edge of the village. The sage was known for his wisdom. People said he had a way of making sense of life's toughest problems. Feeling a mix of hope and nervousness, Adov decided to visit the sage. The walk to the sage's hut was a long one, giving Adov plenty of time to think about what he was going to say. As he approached the hut, he saw the sage sitting outside, his eyes closed, a peaceful smile on his face. Adov hesitated for a moment, but then, gathering his courage, he stepped forward. The sage opened his eyes and, seeing Adov, greeted him with a warm and knowing smile. Adov sat down beside the sage and took a deep breath. He began to tell the sage about Karan and how the friendship was making him feel. The sage listened quietly, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. Adov felt a sense of relief just talking about it. He hadn't realized how much he needed someone to listen. As Adov finished his story, he looked at the sage, eager for some words of wisdom. The sage nodded thoughtfully, then spoke. "What you are facing is not just about Karan. It's about how you let his actions affect you." Adov leaned forward, eager to learn. The sage continued. Buddha spoke of 4 noble truths. The first truth is that life has suffering. It's a part of everyone's life, just like your struggle with Karan. Adov thought about this. Yes, he had seen everyone around him face some sort of trouble or pain. The second truth, the sage went on, is that we suffer because we want things to be a certain way. We get attached to these wants. In your case, you want Karan to be kinder, more positive. But he's not, and that hurts you. Aarav nodded. He had always hoped Karan would change, but he never did. The third truth is that there is a way to stop suffering. It's by letting go of these wants, these attachments. The sage's voice was gentle, but firm. "But how do I let go?" Aarav asked, his voice filled with curiosity. "That's where the fourth truth comes in," the sage replied. "Buddha gave us the Eightfold Path. It's like a map to help us live better, kinder lives, free from suffering." The sage spent the next while explaining the Eightfold Path. He talked about right understanding, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Each part of this path helps us to live in a way that brings peace and goodness, the sage said. For example, right speech means speaking truthfully and kindly. Imagine how different your talks with Karan might be if you both followed this. Aarav listened, fascinated. It was like he was seeing a new way to live, a way that could free him from the hurt and frustration he felt with Karan. But remember, the sage added, this path isn't just about dealing with others. It's about changing yourself, how you think, and how you act. It's about finding peace within you, no matter what happens around you. Adov felt a spark of hope. Maybe he couldn't change Karan, but he could change how he reacted to him. He could choose to be calm, kind, and unattached to Karan's negativity. As Adov left the sage that day, he felt lighter, as if he had found a new way to walk through the storm of his life. He had much to think about, much to try and change in himself. But for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to try. The first thing Adov focused on was the Eightfold Path, especially right speech and right action. He started being more mindful of how he talked and acted around Karan. Instead of reacting immediately to Karan's harsh words, Adov paused, took a deep breath, and chose to respond calmly or not at all. This was hard. Many times, Adov wanted to snap back or argue, but he kept reminding himself of the sage's advice. Peace starts from within. Adov also tried to understand Karan better. He thought about the Four Noble Truths, particularly about how suffering is part of life and how we can end it by understanding its root. He realized that Karan's behavior might be coming from his own struggles and pain. This didn't excuse Karan's actions, but it helped Adov see him in a different light. It's not just as a toxic person, but someone suffering too. The hardest part for Adov was learning to set boundaries, a concept he learned from right intention. He knew he couldn't change Karan, but he could change how much he let Karan's behavior affect him. Setting boundaries meant sometimes saying no to Karan or choosing not to be around when Karan was very negative. Aarav worried this might end their friendship, but he also knew he had to protect his own peace. As days passed, Aarav noticed something. The more he practiced Buddhist teachings, the less power Karan's negativity had over him. It wasn't that Karan changed, it was Aarav who changed how he dealt with the situation. There were moments of frustration, of course, but Aarav kept going back to the teachings, using them as a guide. One day, Karan asked Aarav why he seemed different, more peaceful, despite the usual challenges. Aarav smiled and shared a bit about Buddha's teachings and how they helped him see things differently. Karan didn't say much, but Aarav could tell he was thinking about it. Aarav's journey had been transformative. As he walked back to the sage, his steps were lighter, his heart more at peace. The turmoil caused by his toxic friend Karan no longer weighed heavily on his soul. It was as if Aarav had shed a heavy cloak of confusion and distress, emerging more resilient and wise. The sage greeted Aarav with a warm, knowing smile, as if he could see the change that had occurred within him. Aarav thanked the sage for his guidance and shared how the teachings of Buddha had started to reshape his perspective on dealing with toxic people. Buddha's teachings are like a lantern in the dark, the sage said. They don't remove the darkness, but give you the light to find your way through it. The sage went on to explain how each aspect of Buddha's wisdom related to handling toxic relationships. He spoke about the concept of anicca, or impermanence. Everything changes, he said. This truth helps us understand that even toxic behavior is not permanent. Your friend's behavior, your reaction to it, they can change. Aarav nodded, remembering the times he felt trapped in Karan's negative spiral. Understanding impermanence had given him hope and patience. Then the sage touched on metta, or loving kindness. It teaches us to have compassion, he explained, even towards those who are difficult. This doesn't mean you accept bad behavior, but you approach it with a heart that seeks to heal rather than to react. Aarav recalled how he had started to look at Karan with more empathy, understanding that his toxicity was a reflection of his inner turmoil. It wasn't about condoning Karan's behavior, but about responding to it with compassion rather than frustration. The sage also spoke about dukkha, or suffering. Understanding that suffering is a part of life helps us recognize that everyone, even those who are toxic, are often acting out of their pain. This understanding can foster a sense of connection, reducing feelings of anger and resentment. Aarav had seen this in Karan. Behind the facade of negativity, there was a friend who was struggling. This realization didn't excuse Karan's actions, but provided Aarav with a broader perspective. Finally, the sage discussed the concept of sila, which refers to moral conduct. Buddha's teachings encourages us to act with integrity, regardless of how others behave. This means setting healthy boundaries and choosing actions that align with your values. Aarav understood this well. He had learned to set boundaries with Karan, not as an act of hostility, but as a necessary step to maintain his peace and self-respect. The sage concluded, Buddhist teachings do not offer a direct solution to every problem. Instead, they offer a way to view and handle life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. Aarav felt a deep sense of gratitude. The wisdom he had gained was not just about dealing with Karan, but about a way of living. He thanked the sage once more, promising to carry these lessons forward in his life. Our journey through the forest of relationships may be full of challenges, but equipped with Buddha's wisdom, we can find our way. If this story resonated with you, do not forget to like and subscribe.